Thank you so much for joining us for our coffee conversations today. We have with us our Cape Fear Valley Health System, Dr. Roxy Wells and Dr. Christopher Tart, as well as our Health Services Director from Cumberland County Schools, Shirley Bolden. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We want to have a conversation about the vaccination clinics for students and children that will be taking place here in Cumberland County Schools. So let's go ahead and get started. Are vaccinations available for students at this time? And will Cumberland County Schools provide vaccinations for students?
It's a great question. So first of all, vaccines are available currently for students. For anyone who's 12 or older, the Pfizer vaccine is available. We offer those at our Health Pavilion North Express Care location on the north side of Fayetteville. Also at our Center Pharmacy location, which is downtown in the Medical Arts building right across from Highsmith's Rainey, as well as at our Bladen Express Care in Bladen County, if anybody lives on the eastern side of Cumberland. And also Dr. Wells has a location at Hoke for anyone who lives on western Cumberland for that location that's available at the Hoke Pharmacy.
Okay.
And to address where Cumberland County Schools, we're going to be providing vaccine to students in partnership with Cape Fear Valley on July 14th. We're going to be coming to a high school near you. We're going to be at Jack Britt, Southview, 71st, Grace Creek, and Douglas Bird. And then we're going to come back to that same location on August 4th to make sure students and families have their second dose. Then on July 15th, we're going to go to our other high schools. We'll be at Terry Sanford, E. Smith, Pine Forest, Cape Fear High School, and Westover High School. And we will return to those same schools on August 5th to give those families the second dose. So we hope you're going to meet us there. We're really excited about this initiative.
Great. So
may I add something right quick? I think it's very important. Chris and Shirley have made it a family affair. I love that whole family affair theme. And so I just wanted to make sure that we recognize that, not only are we vaccinating your children 12 and up, but if there are parents out there or caregivers who want to be vaccinated, it is a family affair, and you should feel free to bring them as well. Is that correct?
That's
Absolutely.
correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uncles, bring your neighbor.
Yeah.
Anybody that you be in close contact with, we want to serve the community that day.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. You actually kind of went right to my next question about that partnership and how that ended up coming about and being an opportunity for our families.
We had back in February, Chris, Shirley, and I worked together to open the clinic at E.E. Smith, and we actually had 5 sites out there. And Shirley's team assisted our team in making sure that we could vaccinate our community on that side of town. And it was such a good experience. We extended that to the Cumberland County Schools employees, and they came and got their vaccines. And it was such a great experience, very well organized, very well run. It just made sense that once it was open to younger individuals, that we would partner as well. And Chris probably can tell you a little bit more about that partnership, but that's how we started to partner with Cumberland County Schools. And it has been a phenomenal experience working with Shirley and her team, and then watching Chris and our team really pull it together in such a way that there weren't any waits. You could get in and get out. And I think that that's going to be very important when we start to vaccinate children, because their parents are going to be getting back and forth to work and those types of things. But I will stop there and throw it to Chris because, he is the guru for Cape Fear Valley of all things vaccines and has done a phenomenal job since the beginning of vaccinations back in December, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Roxy, for that. But our partnership with Shirley, Dr. Connolly, and Cumberland County Schools has been a fantastic one. Shirley approached and Dr. Wells approached me early on about the E. Smith event, and we have done a fantastic job with that, partnering with Shirley's team and all the school nurses, the pharmacy team, the Cape Fear Valley team, security. We had a shuttle. At E. Smith alone, we gave over 2,000 vaccines in that 5-dose event. And community members. We also opened up to school employees. That was our first real partnership. The second big partnership was Cumberland County school employees. Shirley lent her team to us to help with that effort. And in the first week alone, we vaccinated over half of the 8,000 Cumberland County school employees at our rehab location. And Shirley's team was instrumental in helping us achieve that goal. But as Roxy said, it was a great event, easy in and out, very efficient. All we got was compliments from all sides of the aisle. And we were happy to do it because it's the right thing to do. This new partnership, this next events that we're holding with Cumberland County Schools, we're also excited about because we want students and their families to be fully vaccinated headed into the next school year because as everybody's witnessing in society, masks are coming off. The Delta variant is very real. And there's only going to be two populations pretty soon. Either you're vaccinated or you've had COVID. And seeing COVID firsthand, even with my teenage daughters, they're fully vaccinated now, had no problem at all vaccinating them. They're happy to get it because they're starting to see their friends who are unvaccinated, who are eligible to get the vaccine, have COVID, not feel well, be sick, not be able to breathe as well, can't see or can't taste their food. It exists. COVID is still very real. We're not out of the woods yet, but we really want to get these kids vaccinated and be fully vaccinated before school starts back. Shirley, I'll kick it to you.
Okay. I am elated that we have over half of our teachers vaccinated, which means that your child's teacher can stay in that classroom. And so if there's someone positive, we don't have to send that teacher home. So there's the continuity of education. So just this partnership, what it has meant for the attendance rate of just our staff is just such a big blessing to our district. So, that's why we're moving in this direction for our students. And I think Joaquin and I are going to talk about that in a second.
Yes, we are. So I definitely commend all of you on your work. I was one of the staff that was able to get vaccinated in the vaccination clinic that was hosted back in February. And that was seamless and so quick. I said, that's faster than going to pick up something in the drive-thru. That's how fast that works. So I appreciate it. And I'm sure the families will as well. So as we talk about children being vaccinated, if parents decide to have their child vaccinated, what does that mean for the students? And then in another part of this question, will families need to inform the schools that their child is vaccinated if they are participating in this vaccination for children?
So I'll take the first part of that, Shirley, if you're okay, and then I will give you the second part of it. And one of the things that I want to say about the partnership before I answer that question is that one of the things that will happen is I believe Shirley's going to have the school nurses assisting with the vaccinations, which means your children or the children who are coming to be vaccinated will be familiar with the individual that's going to be working with them. And I think that that's a huge positive. But what it means for the children, I think Shirley and Chris have kind of already touched on that. And not only does it affect the children, it affects the families as well. One, your kids can get back to school. You can feel safe that they're there. You don't worry that much. You don't have to worry about them bringing something home because they would have been vaccinated. And so, again, it cuts down on absences associated with being diagnosed with COVID. That could be up to 10 to 14 days, and so you don't want your kids out of school for that length of time. And then we also recognize that parents are working. And so if your child is out of school, that means that you have to take time off of work, which really can affect our families. And so we want to really alleviate all of that if possible. So the more children that are vaccinated, the better off we are as a school system. And from a standpoint of, and this may be a question later on, but I'll answer it here. From the standpoint of, is it safe? it is safe. Some of the things that I've always talked about, new medicines or new vaccines, is it safe? Is it effective? And does it do what it's supposed to do, which is it effective? And, we found now that the answer to all of those is yes. We've, in this country, vaccinated over 150 million people and really haven't had any untoward experiences from that. You would think that you would have heard more, but we've really done very well as a country with vaccinating these folks. So if you're concerned about safety, I am not. I've had relatives get the vaccine. I've encouraged 12 years and older of individuals that I know personally to get the vaccine, and they've done well. And so from a safety perspective, I don't think that there is any issue. And then, Chris, you may know how many people we've actually vaccinated in our community. I mentioned the 150 million across the country, but I think if we bring that down to our community so folk can, understand how many have been vaccinated here. And have you had any untoward effects? Because you've really been hands-on at all of our clinics for the most part, so you would know the answer to that. And then, Shirley, I think you probably are best for the second part. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit on a lot of good points there, Dr. Wells, and it is safe, it's effective. Like I said, I vaccinated my own 14-year-old and 16-year-old daughters. Had no hesitancy at all to do that. They did very well with the vaccine. We vaccinated countless teenagers, pregnant mothers, mothers who want to, or females of childbearing age who want to become pregnant with no undue side effects. A lot of these rumors that you hear, all of this unproven social media things that people portray are really unfortunate and untrue. If this pandemic would have happened 20, 25 years ago, I think everybody would be lined up to get the vaccine. And you wouldn't see the hesitancy that we see in some of these untruths that are being spread. But this vaccine, as Dr. Wells said, 150 million plus have been given. Million. For our health system, we've given over 150,000 doses and not had any untoward side effects that were serious or life-threatening. And we've really had a good experience across all of our sites, even teenagers, childbearing age, people who had other underlying diseases, immunocompromised, cancer center patients, really have had really good results. We do a good job monitoring you. We've got all the right people in place in case something does happen to take care of you. And we've done a really good job of that. So it is very safe, very effective. Don't believe everything you read or hear. My mama kind of taught me that. You believe half of what you see, none of what you read until somebody's told you. But so listen to the experts. Listen to Dr. Wells. Listen to me. Listen to Shirley. A lot of good information. A lot of good national societies on pediatrics have come out talking about that the risks are far outweighed by the benefits for these vaccines. We don't know what the long-term effects of COVID are going to be for people who've contracted the virus. We don't know what kind of new diseases are going to be named after COVID, cardiovascular diseases, lung diseases. These things are going to happen. And we just don't know. It's so early on, but we do know the vaccine works. And we know it's very effective, and it will help you and your loved ones. So don't wait. Don't think this is going away, because this is going to be part of our society. COVID vaccines will eventually probably become like the flu vaccine. It's going to be part of life. It's something we do every year as we learn more and more about this new disease. So Shirley, I'll kick it over to you.
Okay, and I'll go back to want to make sure parents understand exactly what it means from the school district perspective if you choose to get your child vaccinated. So if your child is vaccinated and there's a positive case in their classroom, your child will not be excluded from school. They'll be able to remain in in-person learning. Now, the reason we're calling it a family affair, because it's bigger. So if a person in your household right now tests positive, your child will be home potentially 24 days because the person who's under isolation has to totally complete their isolation period before your child can begin their quarantine period. So that's why we want a family affair. So if it's the aunt, the uncle, the cousin, the neighbor, whoever is in close proximity with you in your household or a family friend, bring them all. because your child will not lose face-to-face instruction time, nor will you lose that valuable time, as Dr. Wells mentioned, at your job. So that's a huge impact. And if you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to report that immediately to the school. But what we will do at the time, if there's an issue of where we need to quarantine, you would have to provide a copy of your child's vaccination record to the school so that we would not quarantine them. So, of course, we'll protect your health privacy, but if your child has been exposed and you can show us that your child has been fully vaccinated and it's been 14 days since that last vaccination, then we're going to make sure that your child remains face-to-face for instruction.
Perfect.
That's awesome. I think that's awesome. I know Shirley and her team, Dr. Conley and the team at Cumberland County Schools have really thought through this and thought through what it looks like for our families. And I think the plan that they have for our Cumberland County families I think those plans are spot on. And here you're hearing, if your child has been vaccinated, but there's been an exposure in school, your child can still come to school, or those individuals who have been vaccinated can still come to school, where those who have not been vaccinated will have to go through that quarantine period. And that, as she stated, can be up to 24 days. And we don't want that for any of our kids. We know that they are open to learning and they want to be in the school setting. That whole social setting of school is extremely important to them. And so we want to make sure that they can stay in school. So that's why vaccinations are extremely important.
Thank you for sharing that valuable information and for highlighting what the difference will be in the upcoming school year for students who are vaccinated versus students who may not get vaccinated, and what that will look like for parents. So, Shirley, I know you mentioned earlier, but just one more time, are there vaccination clinics set up exclusively for Cumberland County school students?
We're going to be serving our community. It is a Cumberland County school function, but we are going to serve the community.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Is there any additional information that you all would like to provide for families?
I think the fertility issue has come up a lot. Now, I would like Dr. Wells to speak on that too, but everything that has come out from all the national societies of the OB societies, GYN societies, and pediatrics is that there are absolutely no fertility issues of this. We have vaccinated many pregnant mothers who were during pregnancy or wanted to become expectant mothers. No issues whatsoever. There's absolutely no truth to that at all, and it's unfortunate that has been spread. That has caused a lot of hesitancy among females, and it's really kind of sad that our society has come to that. But it really is an untruth, and we also anticipate that the emergency use for Pfizer is going to lift in the coming weeks. It will become part of a permanent stay. That emergency use was only issued because it was a new vaccine and it's something that had not been approved in the past. So there's a review period for that. But as Dr. Wells said, the country has given millions of these doses. So we fully expect it to be fully approved and have permanent standing with the FDA. And a lot of people are waiting for that. But don't wait for that because it's going to happen. Please don't wait till August or September. Flu season gets here. With masks coming off, flu is going to come back. COVID is going to still exist. RSV is going to be around in our kids. So we're already starting to see that as a health system. We're already starting to see some flu cases and RSV cases. And it's only going to get worse as fall and winter gets here. So go ahead and get your COVID vaccine so you can take that part out of the picture. But Dr. Wills, can you talk a little bit about the fertility?
Well, I think everything you said is spot on. I don't know that I could add anything additional. As you stated, we vaccinated many pregnant moms who have since had very healthy babies with no issues. So I think everything that you mentioned is spot on. I would mention, though, when we look at hesitancy, one of the things that we've seen or one of the things that's been highlighted is hesitancy among people of color. Black people, Latinx, or what have you, for a lot of historical reasons that don't hold true for this particular vaccine or where we are in society today. One of the things I want people to remember is this isn't just an American issue. This is a worldwide issue. So people are being vaccinated worldwide. We're telling you 100 million, 150 million in the United States, but we're not talking about all of the other countries around the world who are vaccinating people and are not having any issues at all. So I want to allay all of those concerns about historical thoughts about being vaccinated. It is safe. I've gotten the vaccine. My husband's gotten the vaccine. My daughter's gotten the vaccine. My sisters, all of my brothers, everybody has gotten the vaccine and done well. Chris mentioned earlier, not listening to myths. Don't listen to individuals who don't have any knowledge, true knowledge about this vaccine. Listen to the folk who can tell you what happens when individuals get COVID. COVID is not a fun disease. We've seen, Chris and I have seen some serious, serious illnesses, deaths associated with that. And we don't want any of that for our Cumberland County school system families or anybody else in our community at all. And so get those vaccines, get your kids vaccinated. We want them to stay in school. We want them to be healthy. We want your families to be healthy. And the economy is returning, and we don't want anybody to have to double back to all the things that we had to deal with initially, with one parent having to quit work to stay home with the kids. And we don't want any of that. Our economy is doing well. And that's in part because of the vaccines that we've been fortunate enough to get. And so I will stop there and throw it to Shirley for additional comments.
I'd like to speak to the parents of the athletes. Being a mom of 3 young men, we were in basketball, football, every athletic event that could happen. So if you have an athletic child, you want to make sure you consider getting them vaccinated. Why? Because here's playoff season, and your child's the star of that team, and your child, has been exposed or, potentially has tested positive for COVID. That team potentially could have to quarantine, and they miss playoffs. Your child could miss a special game. And, this is a big thing for our community. We want our athletes well. So I encourage all parents and guardians of athletes, please consider getting your child vaccinated. We want Cumberland County Schools to win all the state championships, and we know you have the talent in your house. So vaccinate your babies, send them out there to the school, and let's take the titles from all these other school districts.
I concur.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think in the media, if anybody's not been living under a rock the last week or so, the NC State baseball team, I feel bad for those kids. But that's a great point. Half the team was vaccinated, the other half wasn't vaccinated, and the entire team lost the potential to win a national championship. I feel terrible for the kids, and it's a personal decision, but it shows you that COVID really is real. The new Delta variant is a lot more contagious, an easier spread, and the COVID is not going away. It's part of our life now, and until we come to grips with that as a country and get over the hesitancy piece, we're still going to have this happen. And Shirley said, you could go through the entire season, be undefeated in basketball, get to the state playoffs, play for an Eastern championship, and your team might not be able to play. You have to forfeit the game. It can happen. It will happen.
It did happen.
It did happen. I'd hate that for the kids. I hate it for the families, the parents, kids who worked their whole lives in a particular sport to get better. And all of a sudden to have it taken away from them from a virus that would be preventable. And vaccinations work. We know they work. In January as a health system, we had over 140 people in the health system hospitalized. It was our highest peak. We were really inundated with COVID cases. By March, because of our vaccine effort for 65 and older in our community was so well done, and we got such a high numbers, we were down in the teens. We're down to 14 was our low in March, and now we're hovering in the low 20s. But that shows you the power of the vaccine. In 2 months' time, by the time we started the 65 and older and got them fully vaccinated, how many less people were in the hospital with COVID? It was a remarkable turnaround. And we're proud of what we did for our community, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And our young population, the hesitancy, we really got to overcome it.
One of the things, Chris, you just hit on, and I think it brings the point home. Our hospitalization rates decreased, but what are we seeing now? The people who are being hospitalized now are individuals who have not been vaccinated. Mm-hmm. Very rarely do we see an individual hospitalized who has received the COVID vaccine. And typically, if they are, it's before they got through that full vaccination piece. And so it is extremely important. We are actually seeing the clinical proof that vaccines work. All of the work that Chris and his team has done during this whole vaccination effort, it is working. Again, those individuals who are being hospitalized now aren't necessarily people who got the vaccine. They're individuals who did not get the vaccine. And that is clear clinical proof in your community that the vaccine works.
Yeah, the proof's in the pudding, what I always say, and there's no way you can't say it doesn't work. We know it works. We see it in our own community. And, it's just we want to get everyone else vaccinated. And the fact is we're seeing younger and younger people who've not been vaccinated be hospitalized, who've had underlying conditions. And it's sad because it does change their life for many months and even cause death. And we really want to prevent that. The end game is to get out of this pandemic, get back to normal life, keep people safe, keep your loved ones safe. A lot of people say, well, I don't need the vaccine. I've already had COVID, or I don't need the vaccine because if I get COVID, I won't be hospitalized because I'm a young person. Think about your loved ones. Think about your grandparents. Think about your parents, your aunts, your uncles. If you got people in your family who have cancer or going to chemo treatment, you really, if you're not vaccinated, you really should stay away from those folks because they are very susceptible to this virus and it can cause death. So think about your loved ones. Don't just think about yourself. Think about your family.
Yeah, I think those are good points. And I know we have to stop, but Chris, you just made me think about something clinical. What we do know is that studies have shown that individuals who have actually contracted COVID and then get the vaccine, they are much more, they're covered. I guess the words I would say, they have a stronger immunity to the virus. And so they have, I guess, what we would call that extra punch. Is that what you would call it, Chris? And you may want to talk more about that because you've been looking at the studies as well. So you may want to talk a little bit about the importance of people who have been diagnosed with COVID getting the vaccine.
Yeah, I think it's still important to be vaccinated. If you've had COVID, you still need to be vaccinated. Once you've got through your recovery period, being vaccinated really gives you that extra protection because not everybody produces antibodies at the same level. The vaccine induces a better immune response than having COVID alone. Now, having COVID, you will have antibodies to it, but we don't know how long those last. The vaccine really is to give you long-lasting immunity to that. And as Dr. Wells said, if you've had COVID and then you get vaccinated later on, you even have a better response and better immunity, almost like a super immunity to COVID because you already had some antibodies in your system and now you really have a better antibody load to fight off the virus. So because you've been vaccinated doesn't mean that you can't catch the virus, doesn't mean you still be safe and wash your hands and be aware of your surroundings. But if you do get the virus, you're probably less likely to be sick, probably won't have any symptoms, much less likely to be a spreader, a carrier. And so it really is important. So it doesn't mean you can't get it. Just like if you get the flu vaccine, doesn't mean you can't get the flu virus, but your clinical course is liable to be much better and much faster. And you know how many you have.
Thank you all so much. You have shared valuable information with our families, and I could listen to this conversation on and on because I know the importance of being vaccinated and having our families vaccinated. And we are appreciative of the partnership and the family affair that is upcoming to get our students and any additional family members vaccinated. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Wells. Thank you, Dr. Tart, for being with us today. Thank you to our very own Shirley Bolden for joining us again. And thank you, families, for joining us for this Coffee Conversations. And remember, it's a family affair. Please take advantage of the opportunity and make sure you're vaccinated. Thank you all and have a wonderful day.